And up next on Tuesday, they're going to host an Auburn team that I just moved up to number 2 in the top 25 and 1. Deadleg, can you get down? No, it was the focus of your court report. Can you get down with Auburn being ranked number 2 right now behind only Baylor? I'll make my case for Bruce Pearl's Tigers if you need me to.
Before we get to that, we saying that's now the weirdest resume. Bama over Dayton. Dayton also has a win over Miami that's aging well. Kansas, Belmont, losses to Ole Miss, SMU. I think you're probably right. Dayton is not going to have it's lost to UMass Lowell, buddy. Lost to UMass Lowell, Lipscomb, Austin Peay. I don't think Dayton can get to a spot where it's at. If you're going to be in that conversation, weirdest resumes, you have to be an at-large candidate. Right. And at this point, Dayton's going to have to tear off 10 consecutive wins to be in that conversation. So I think your comment there is right, but I was trying to riff in real time, and I remembered the Flyers were a bit bizarre there.
Just trust me on these things. I didn't go skiing all weekend. I've been working.
It's all right, but I want to get you back on that. Maybe you and I can do a ski trip together at some point. Oh, that's hard to do. We both one of us has to be on this podcast in the winter, and then when basketball isn't happening, like we'd have to fly to Austria together, which I'm also up for doing, by the way. Did you ask me about the Tigers or the Tide?
I asked you about the Auburn Tigers. I moved them up to 2nd in the top 25 and 1. I'm asking if you approve.
I do approve. Now, Auburn was the subject of my court report this past Wednesday. I talked to Bruce Pearl in advance of the team's road win against South Carolina. And he had actually pointed out, I can't remember if I put this in the court report or not. It's been a little bit of time here, and I had to deal with kids trying to learn how to ski. Fun, but predictably frustrating, but rewarding all the same. So brain's a little bit of scrambled right now. But Pearl said that between at South Carolina, home to Florida, at Alabama, at Ole Miss, which is those next 2 are coming up on the schedule, he was like collectively, since he got to Auburn, like 8 games under 500 in those scenarios when his team played at Carolina, home to Florida, at Bama, at Ole Miss. So he said this next stage here is going to really be a nice barometer for me to really understand how good our team can be and where we are. And at this point, is there any other conceivable argument other than Auburn to be the number 2 team after what we saw Kansas was incapable of doing over the weekend? I don't think so. Auburn at 14-1. The only loss was, it was a really good game that I think a lot of people watching live on YouTube right now or listening on the podcast, if you're among the diehard sect that watches those Thanksgiving week games, Auburn UConn at the Battle for Atlantis was it's one of the 5 to 7 best games we've had this season. Double OT loss against a Huskies team, which, oh, by the way, is kind of reeling right now and hasn't won back-to-back games in well over a month there. But even still, like UConn, probably going to make the tournament, probably a top 30 level team overall when healthy this season, in my opinion. And so, yeah, a 14-1 team. Baylor, probably the most reliable thing we got going in all of American sports at this point, GP. But Auburn at 2 does make a whole heck of a lot of sense. And when I talked to Pearl, we kind of hit on a bunch of different notes there. I wanted to kind of get it all into the court report. But my primary takeaways were, one, he had mentioned the growth of Walker Kessler, and they kind of, I didn't realize how long Pearl and his staff had known Kessler, but he's like from the area and they'd recruited him since he was sophomore in high school. So when he transferred, like there was a real establishment there, and they sold him on, listen, you don't even realize how good of a defensive player you can be, and we're going to make you into that. And they have. It's been huge gains practically immediately from the start of the season. And then, of course, we talked about Jabari Smith, and he said Jabari Smith's greatest quality is that he's not just humble. He's saying when he's on the floor, like, he makes everyone else around him comfortable because he's not trying to play to any kind of expectation of what he should be, stereotype of him being the number 1 pick in the draft. He doesn't ball hog. He doesn't take shots he shouldn't take. He just kind of seamlessly flows within the offense there. And I think that's made a huge difference. And he said with him, there's just not any ego. And he understands, like, this is going to be a one and done season for Jabari Smith, who is clearly pacing himself to top 3 status in the June NBA draft. That's clear at this point. But let's talk about college basketball terms, what he means to this team right now. He's highly efficient. Pearl emphasized the fact that, listen, we've got a 3-point shooter that's north of 40%. Actually, as we speak right now, Jabari Smith is hitting 45% of his threes as a 6'9", 6'10", kind of long, prototypical NBA prospect, right? And so because he shoots so well reliably from beyond the arc, a good 3-point shooter, a good foul shooter, a good distributor of the ball, likes to rebound, and never seems to really get himself into foul trouble, while at the same time also drawing a lot of contact and getting to the line. He's been a fabulous player, and college basketball fans probably know about him. But I think his moment of true national arrival might be coming in the next month or so once Auburn's populating the top 5 of the rankings. Their game on a given Tuesday or Wednesday night versus another really good SEC team will kind of be the thing that we either talk about heading into a podcast that week or coming out of it the next morning after. So more Jabari Smith love is coming nationally all along the way. But yeah, Auburn. I go back to this, GP. Who else in your mind, since you're doing this, like, who else has a conceivable argument for number 2 in the country right now other than the Tigers?
I actually don't think anybody. That's why I jumped them up to number 2. Like, I looked at it from every angle. Some people, I guess, would make an argument for Arizona being only a 1-loss team. But Arizona, is 1-1 in quadrant 1. And, that's it. 0 wins over currently ranked teams. Now, I believe that'll change on Monday because they've got that win over Illinois, and Illinois will probably move into the AP poll on Monday. But as of this moment, Arizona's, they have one quadrant 1 win. Auburn's sitting here with 3. Auburn is 3-1, and this is sort of, if I was looking for one thing to justify it, this is what I landed on. Auburn is 14-1 overall, wins over LSU, Loyola Chicago, Florida, UCF, Syracuse. The loss is a double OT loss to UConn like 7 weeks ago. They're 3-1 in quadrant 1, 4-0 in quadrant 2. So they're 7-1 in the first 2 quadrants with 0 additional losses. The only team in the country with at least 7 wins in the first 2 quadrants with a higher winning percentage in the first 2 quadrants, the only one better than Auburn is Baylor. That's it. Baylor's 4-0 in quadrant 1, 3-0 in quadrant 2. So I think you can reasonably argue right now Auburn has the second best resume in the country. And that's why I jumped them up to number 2. And I love the roster. Jabari Smith's going to get most of the attention. He might be the number 1 pick in the draft. Walker Kessler and Alan Flanagan are also like legitimate NBA prospects, like late first, somewhere in the second round type picks. And then you got, Katie Johnson, Wendell Green, Jalen Williams, 2 sophomores and a junior. The thing I like about Auburn's roster is they have the type of NBA talent you typically need to go win the whole thing. But then they also have the type of non-freshman you typically need to go win the whole thing. Like, they might have the number 1 pick in the draft as a one-and-done freshman. Everybody else in the rotation is a non-freshman. They've got lots of sophomores, juniors. Jabari Smith's the only freshman in the rotation. So they've got experienced and NBA talent, an accomplished coach, a lot, and one of the best, defensive rim protecting bigs in the country in Walker Kessler. I mean, there's just a lot to like there. I don't know, I can't promise you they're going to end up in the Final Four like, the 2019 team did, but I can promise you this, they're good enough to do it. I don't know if they will do it, but, right now they look the part.